You can draw this in Procreate. Yes, you can, because I will take you through every single step. You'll learn all about the tools in Procreate, like using a perspective grid, making use of layer clipping mask, and different layer blending modes. And then in the end, you will end up with a result I'm sure you'll be proud of. So let's get started right away. First of all, the canvas we're working on is 2300 pixels by 3000 pixels. And I've linked a color palette down in the description, so you can use the same colors as I'm using. And then if you're ready, let's get started. We are going to draw this in a simple, straightforward perspective. So the first thing we need to do is set up a perspective guide. And you can do that by going to the wrench, then to canvas, then turn on your drawing guide, and then tap edit drawing guide. And then you need to select perspective here at the bottom. And we are going to set our vanishing point in the center of our canvas. So that's about here. And then you can tap done. And then we'll start with a rough sketch of our scene. And for that sketch, I'd like to use the 6B pencil that you can find in the sketching section. And for the color, you can just go for black. Now let me check the size. It's a bit big, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Let's go for 30%. And the opacity is at 100. First, let's make some lines that will follow our perspective. So we'll make some big objects. Let's zoom out just a little bit. And to do that, to make our lines follow the perspective grid, we can go to the layer menu, tap the layer, and then turn on drawing assist. Now our lines will follow the perspective. And then let's first make a line about here. That's like the bottom of the floor. This is the floor area and this is the wall area. And then I'd like to create a desk at about this height, and it'll stop here, and here we won't see the edge. And of course it'll have some volume. Maybe we can make a little line like this, and then a thicker area underneath. And then we'll have these parts. We'll go a little bit lower here. This is like the stand. And here in front, I'd like to create a couch. So we don't need to go all the way down here on the left side. And then we'll go towards the wall here and then up. Then on this side, we'll do the same. We'll make this like drawer area. I'll just make a line here so that we know the height. And then here we'll go to the wall and then up. And then here is the other side. Let's go down. And we can connect it a little bit here so we know the height. And then let's make a shelf. So I'll just make two lines parallel. And then here we'll make a line that is following the perspective. So it gets depth here. And then maybe over here, there is like a big drawer. And here as well. Now let's make a little shelf here as well. So just two lines. And then we'll go to the back. Not completely. Here we'll go up. And here we'll go to the right. So this will have depth as well. Now, of course, our desk needs depth. Too. Let's make a line like this for the top part. And then here we'll follow the perspective. So it's a little corner, and here as well. These lines need to connect. And on the floor, I'd like to make a rug. Let's just make like a square shape. Here we'll follow the perspective. We'll go towards the desk. And later we can make this look fluffy. Right now we just need the base shape. Then at the top, I'd like to create a window. So let's just create a shape like this. There's a high window. Then make a little line going down. And then like this for that volume. Now let's actually go up a little bit. Then here we'll create a parallel line. Then to the right. Let's stop about here and make a line going up So we'll have like two parts, two windows here. So we have our desk, we have a window here at the top. And of course, we also need a line here for that perspective. You'll see this side of that windowsill or window frame, and here you'll see this side. Then between the desk and the window, let's make a shelf. It's always nice to have. Let's just first make a long rectangle like this. Then we'll go towards the wall, so make a line like this. Then we'll go to the left and we'll connect it here. And then let's make a little line here and then go to the back and down here. Then like this. And then we can connect these parts. We can just make a line and then hold your pen in place to connect this so that we have like a, not sure what it's called, like a holder. It's carrying the shelf. Here the same, first a little line like this, and we'll go to the wall, then down. That should be at the same height as this one, so you could make a line to check that, or you could make a temporary line or a line in a different color, then a line like this, and then we'll go ahead and connect these again. So hold your pen in place so that your line won't follow the grid. Like this. And then on our desk, we need a big screen. A big screen to watch my YouTube tutorials. Super handy, big screen. So it's just a rectangle. Like this. And then a stand right here in the center. And then at the top of the desk, there will be a keyboard. So we can just make a shape like this, big keyboard. We'll keep it simple. A little bit of volume. And then here on the left, we have some room for a curtain. Let's just make a line going down. Like this for some folds. And then here for our like a couch, let's have the armrest here. And then like at the top, there's like the sitting. So we have some guides for when we turn off our drawing guide or drawing assist, so we can make organic shapes. But for now, at least we have these lines. Let's also create a little stool. Let's first think of the top of the stool. Let's just make the front first. And then we'll make lines going to the back following the grid. And here's the back. So this is roughly a shape. And then we'll move down to make the legs. Make sure they are the same height. So just these legs, two of them, and then we can make a line to the back. Just very thin, and then we can connect it. We can go down here. So we can make another leg over here. And for this one, you wouldn't be able to see it. We can also make these lines connecting these legs. So that's a very simple stool. Right now it looks a bit like angular. We can add more organic shapes to that later. And also here at the top on our shelf, let's make some books. Let's make some lines like this. And these as well look pretty angular right now. But when we create our line art, We can make these shapes more organic. Add some curves. Here we'll see the side of these books. Now let's move on to the more organic shapes. We have this as a base. Now we can make this room look more cozy. So let's go to the layer menu and tap the layer and then turn off drawing assist. So now we can make organic shapes. Our lines won't follow the grid anymore. So first let's go for that couch. Let's make a curved line here. And then we'll go in this direction, make a diagonal line downward here. And then we can make this like curved. Maybe there's like a sheet on top of this couch. And here's the armrest. We have this line here. And we'll curve down here. And then like here, where we have that line, that's where like the sitting part ends. So we can make some curves. Then on top, I'd like to make a pillow here, right in the corner. And maybe there's a little plushie sitting here. Just a rounded shape. You can go for whatever plushie you like. Maybe you'd like to create a bear. I'll give it legs and little ears, eyes, and a simple smile. This is like a simplified fat cat or something like that. Little creature. Maybe we also have a phone lying around here. We can just make a rectangular shape like this. But maybe you can also think of some other stuff that will be lying around here. We can also clean this up, by the way. We can just tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to the 6B pencil. Let's make it a little bit smaller, maybe 30%. And then we can use this eraser to tidy things up. For instance, we don't need this line here for our wall. So that'll make it easier later on when we create our line art. Tidying this up a bit. Now let's go back to our brush. Let's add some stuff to the wall. Maybe there are some like sticky notes, or maybe frames. I don't want it to be too tidy. I want this to look playful. You could use the perspective guide. I use drawing assist for this, for some of these frames, but it's not necessary. Maybe there's one hanging here, another one behind. You can put whatever you like on the wall. Perhaps you have some other ideas. Or just like some random frames. And a little note here with a little heart. And maybe here there's one that is barely in sight. Maybe we can use one over here. Try to vary the shapes a bit. This one is a little bit longer with a little cord here. And we can also use some more books here. Maybe there are a few lying here. And maybe there's a frame over here. And maybe some more books. Maybe there's one that is turned around so we can see like the pages. And this room can also use some plants. So let's make a simple pot with 2 slightly diagonal lines and then a little curve here. And then just a very simple plant. And one over here as well, 2 slightly diagonal lines, then a little curve. And then just a simple plant. This is already starting to look like something. Let's make a little like, like a can or cup. I don't know what to call this with pens. This is like a pen holder. Just with a bunch of pens or markers. And we also need a mouse, computer mouse. We'll just create a simple shape here. And maybe there's a vase over here. Getting inspired by what I see on the desk of my daughter. The little vase with some flowers, very simple shaped. Over here underneath the desk, we could create a backpack. So a curve here at the top, big curve. And then we can make another curve like this. So that's like the top. And like a handle here. And maybe an extra compartment here. And maybe a dashed line like this. And over here there might be a desk chair that is just out of sight. Let's make a rounded shape, then a line down like this, and then another line parallel to the other one. And you can go and grab your eraser if you want to tidy this up, of course. Maybe let's also get rid of this one. And the lines that go through our backpack. Now let's go back to the brush. And then over here you'll see those, like the wheels of the desk chair. So oval here, extra shape here, and then just at the top of it, like this part. And then here will be another wheel. Keep it simple, just a circle with a shape like this on top. We don't have to make a super detailed chair here. And over here we have some room. Let's make a globe. Let's make a circle. You can hold your pen in place and tap one finger on the screen for a perfectly round circle. And then let's make a curve right along that globe. And go up here, then make another curve. Connect it here. And then underneath there will be an oval stand. And we can make some continents. Doesn't have to be like super realistic. Just go for something that looks a bit like consonants. There. And for our drawers here, we need some like handles, big ones like this. I like that. And maybe here we have one with a semicircle. Then what our room still needs is a bit more plants. Let's go up here and let's make a pot, maybe with an extra edge here. And then let's make a different kind of plant here with these leaves. Trying to keep it simple. Then another pot here. So first these diagonal lines, then a curve like this. And these curves are like a bit like upward curves. While we are looking at these a little bit from below. So then the curve will be upward. But over here, this one is underneath the horizon line, and there you will look like from above. So then the curve will be downward. These curves, rounded stuff here, it's curved downward, and here it's curved upward. Just a little thing to keep in mind when working with a perspective like this. Then over here, let's make another plant. Maybe this one has these very big leaves. And also some smaller ones. Just trying to vary the shapes of these plants a bit. But I think they always give a cozy look to a room illustration like this, or to a real room. Plants always add something, not just oxygen. And then over here, diagonal line. This one is slightly out of sight, and maybe this one has like a little saucer or whatever it's called underneath to catch the water. And it has big leaves. Something like this. And then I think our sketch, our room, has everything it needs. So what we are going to do now is create our line art. Before we do that, let's turn off the drawing guide. Let's go to the wrench, then to canvas, then turn off the drawing guide. We don't need that anymore. And let's lower the opacity of our sketch. So go to the layer menu, tap the N, and you can set it to 30%, for example. If you can manage, yeah, 30%. And now let's tap the plus for a new layer on top on which we can create our line art. And then for our brush, I'd like to go to the inking brushes and use the dry ink brush. And for the opacity, we can set that to 100%. And I'd like to set the size to 4%. So we can get nice, thin, delicate lines. And then for the color for our line art, I'd like to go for this one over here, 10th color in the first row. It's a brownish color, and it's nice to create line art that isn't black but has a different color. In this case, a nice warm tone. It'll make it look less harsh. So I would definitely recommend playing around with the color of your line art when you create illustrations. So now let's just dive in and follow our sketch lines. But you don't have to follow them like exactly. You can add some playfulness in some cases. Add some extra little touches, extra little details. Especially when we move to the rug. And of course, rotate your canvas as you go, making it easier to create some curves. And you can also play around with turning a drawing assist on and off. You don't need to have your grid to be visible. You can just go to your layer, turn on drawing assist, and then your lines will follow the perspective. And for some elements in the room, that can be handy. Here we can make some lines going up, for instance, suggesting these folds. And maybe a little dash line here. Keep it simple. Then our little plushie. Creating its feet. And we'll just go along all of the lines of our sketch. Very slowly, building up our illustration. We can add a little circle here on its belly, just as an extra touch. Then for the phone, simple rectangular shape. And then let's move on to the rug. For the rug, I'd like to follow the line, but create little wobbles like this, making it like a woolly rug. So the sketch line is just a guide that you can use to be able to follow the perspective. But we'll make this nice wiggly, bumpy area, bumpy line. Some bumps can be bigger. Try to vary it a bit. And then just rotate to be able to create the bumps over here. And here I'll go upside down. All along that line. I think we're almost there. Like I said, try to vary it a bit, not just the size, but sometimes also the direction a little bit. And then over here, you'll see a little bit of the side. There, and then you can add little bumps in the center area to add to that texture, to make it really look like this is a woolly rug. It's like M shapes we're creating. Some will be longer, and sometimes you'll just see a single little bump. Just all along the carpet or the rug. Just try to vary it. No need to give this too much thought. A nice spread of little bumps. Now let's work on this stool. Let's give it a bit of like a rounded shape. So you don't have to follow the sketch lines exactly. Just making it a bit rounded. So that we have some organic shapes in here. Don't want everything to stiffly follow the perspective. And also for the legs, we can go for a bit more of like a diagonal line. We can hold our pen in place, make it a bit more diagonal, and a little bit rounded here at the bottom. This makes it look a bit more elegant. A little bit rounded here at the bottom. And this one. Would look something like this. And then of course we have this line. Let me think. Let's just put that in here. And I'll just use the eraser. So we can tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to the dry ink brush. And we can erase this part. And sometimes you might need to go back to the brush and go over a little bit, tidying it up. And then this one, you can just hold your pen in place for a nice straight line. I do feel like this one is a little bit too thin maybe, so we could just go in here, make a new line, make it a bit more thick, and then just go to the eraser. You make that a bit smaller. Go to the eraser and tidying it up. And then back to the brush, fixing that. I think that looks better. And now what you can just do is continue following these lines, adding more of an organic feel in some cases, and then eventually you'll end up with something like this. And as you can see, I've added some little details like some lines on the keyboard just to suggest the buttons and some text on some of these notes. Well, you can't really read it, but it's suggesting that there is text. So now that we have all our lines, we can turn off our sketch layer and we can get started with adding all the colors. And when we add the colors, let's try to group things in a logical way. Let's start in the back, like with the wall and the floor. So let's make a layer underneath this one. Let's tap here and then tap a plus. And then for the floor, I'd like to use this color, 5th color in the first row. And for our brush, let's go and grab the studio pen, which is under inking. It is a nice crisp brush. Let me check the size. Let's make that bigger. Let's just set it to 55%. Opacity should be at 100%. And then we can just make a closed shape. Let's actually make this smaller. Let's go for 25%. Or whatever size you feel comfortable with, of course. Let's make a shape like this. Just a line along the edge of the floor, and then we can drag in the color. And then for the wall, I'd like to use a different color. We'll use the first one in the first row, and we can just drag it in here to fill the rest of the canvas. Then next, I'd like to create a layer for the window and for the curtain. Let's tap the plus for a new layer. Then for the curtain, I'd like to use this color, 6th color in the first row. And let's, again, just follow the edge. We can go even smaller. Let's go for 10% or 11. So just go along the edge. And I'm not using like color fill here, using the lines that we have, because the brush that we use is quite textured. So when you use color drop, then you end up getting some weird edges. It won't fill properly. So that's why I'm doing it like this. I'm dragging the color. And then for the window, let's use the second color in the second row. And another way to fill areas is by using the selection tool, the S shape ribbon, setting it to freehand with color fill turned on. And then we can just tap around the entire object that you want to fill. And every time you tap, you get a straight line. Then we'll go here to this corner, down here, then we can go all the way to the left, up like this, and then closing the selection, and then it will be filled. Then let's turn off the selection. Let's put the sky on a separate layer. Let's do that underneath this one. Or actually, what we can also put on this layer before we move on is the rug. Let's grab a color for that. Let's use this one over here. First color in the first row. And let's just go along the edges. Filling that entire shape. And it could be that you need to make your brush even smaller here. No problem. I'll just wiggle my way along the edge. So that we can create a closed shape. Still got a way to go. Almost at the corner. And then all the way to the other side. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Almost there. Or not. Still quite a long way to go, but we'll get there. Why do we choose a wiggly woolly carpet or a rug? Yeah, why did we do that? I don't know. It looks cool, but it's a bit of work to get to the other side, but it'll be worth it. Yeah, now we're almost there. And we're closed. All right, now we can drag in the color. And now, like I said, I want the sky to be on a separate layer. So let's go to this layer first and tap the plus. And then for the color, we'll grab this one. Third color in the second row. And well, let's just use the selection tool again. And since we are below that window layer, we can just make a shape like this. Then close it. And then tap the selection tool again. On the next layer, I'd like to create or color the desk and the shelf. So let's make a layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus. And then for the top of the desk, let's grab this color, third color in the first row. And we can use the selection tool again. Let's just go in here, following the edges. And you can go through the pot. Don't have to worry about that. Because those will be colored on a layer on top of this. And what happened here? I see I missed a line. Let me fix that later. How did I miss that? Go all the way here and close this and untap the selection tool again. Now let me fix this line. Let me turn the sketch layer back on. Let me put it at the top. Let me go back to that dry ink brush and the line art color, 10th color here. And let me close this. I see a little dot here. All right, now I can get back to coloring. But I'm also seeing this over here, by the way, little gap. Oops. Grabbing the brush, fixing that. All right, let's continue with our desk. Let's go back to this layer. And then for the base of the desk, like the stands, let's grab this color, first color in the second row. And again, we can use the selection tool to select these areas. We can go all the way down here. Then along this area, down, and then close it. Then let's also do that for this side. You can just continue with the selection tool. And of course you can also make curved lines, although you could just go through the backpack. Along the edges. And then I'd like these drawers to be a different color. So what we can do is tap remove. And let me undo this. So tap remove and then remove a part of your selection so that it won't get colored. And here we need to add a little bit, so we can tap add again. And then we can fill this area. And tap the selection tool again. Then for these areas, I'd like to use this color, fourth color, in the second row. And again, we can use the selection tool. And we can select these drawers. And then the bottom one, let's just go through this chair. Not sure why I'm trying to be tidy here. It's not really necessary. And then for this one, close the selection. And then let's turn the selection off. And then for our color, let's grab this one, 8 color in the second row. And let's use that for these handles. Let me grab the studio pen again. Let's use that there and let's just color it in by hand. This one. Well, and this one. And then this one. And then I just want to color the shelf on this layer. And for the shelf, I'd like to use this color, fourth color in the first row. And again, we can use the selection tool. We can go in here and just follow the shape. It's nice that you can make these long, straight lines with the selection tool. Definitely saves time. Close the shape and turn off the selection tool. On the next layer, I'd like to color the couch, the stool, the bag, and the chair here. And let's also add the computer here. So let's make a new layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus. And for the couch, I'd like to use this color, 9th color in the first row. And I'd actually like to use this color for the couch, the backpack, and the top of the stool here. So just use your studio pen again to fill these shapes, and then it'll look like this. Then let's move on and let's color the pillow. Let's use the 3rd color in the 2nd row for that. And let's just go along the outside of our plushie. Drag in the color. Then for the plushie, I'd like to use this color, 3rd color in the 1st row. But of course you can give your plushie any color you like. By the way, actually we can just drop in the color here since it's surrounded by the other shapes. And for the phone, we can use this color, 8th color in the 2nd row. Drop that in, tidy it up if it's needed. And then for the chair, I'd also like to use this color. For the wheels, let me make it a bit more tidy. And this one. I hope you are having fun so far drawing this room. I just wanted to quickly mention Patreon, because if you are enjoying this process, then I'm sure that you will also love the tutorials that I have over there. It's more than 200 tutorials, and they range from beginner level to more advanced. I have a super wide variety of subjects, so it's really the perfect place to get your Procreate drawing and painting skills to the next level and make even more work that you'll be proud of. And of course, I'll be super proud of you as well. So I'll just leave a link for you in the description if you want to check it out. But now let's continue. And then let's grab this color, a 2nd color in the 1st row for this part. And then for the stool, I'd like to use this color, a 3rd color in the 1st row. And then let's just follow our line art. You can color this in by hand a bit. Go along the edges. And as soon as you have a shape that is closed, you can drop in the color. Then we just need to go for these parts. There may be some parts need tidying up. That looks good. And then for the PC, let's use this color, 1st color in the 2nd row. And let's go along the edges. Of course, you could also use the quick line. Drop in the color as soon as you have a closed shape. You could have also used the selection tool here, of course. And let's also put or color the mouse on this layer. Then for the extra stuff, let's make another layer for all the plants and the things on the desk. But let's actually put that on a layer underneath this, because we also have a thing behind our screen here. So let's tap this layer, then tap the plus, and then let's start coloring these objects. And you can definitely play around with the colors here. Let me first grab the 8th color in the 1st row. Let me use that for this cup here. And for the pens, you can just play around. Grab a variety of colors like this green. You don't have to use the exact same colors as I'm using. Maybe some yellow. And we can use some blue. Maybe this one as well. And maybe that second color in the second row. And maybe also some pink, this 9th color. And now that we have this pink, let's also use it for these flowers. And for the vase, we can use this color. A 6th color in the first row. Let's make it yellow. And let's also use this color for this note here. Then for the globe, let's use this color, 3rd color in the second row for the oceans. And you can just color it by hand. Then for the land, use the 5th color in the second row. And this one. And then for the other part, we'll use this 4th color in the second row. Fill that semicircle. And the stand here. Next, let's grab this color, 2nd color in the first row. Let's use that for some of these notes. And this one. And while we have this color, we can also use it for the paper of this book. And maybe we can color one of the books with this color. And then let's switch to this color, 3rd color in the first row. We can use that for this one. And maybe for, well, let's maybe go for a slightly darker color, 4th color in the first row for the frame here. And for this one. Then let's switch to this color, 7th color in the first row. Let's use it for this one over here. We can just drag in the color actually. And then let's use this orange. We can use the orange for the tags, and maybe also for this part. like I said, you can also definitely switch this up. Let's also color this frame. All these colors work nicely together. So you can, like I said, switch things up. Then let's grab this pink. Let's use that for the inner part. Here we can just drag the color in here. And then let's grab this blue, fourth color in the second row for this one. And maybe we can also add some interesting stuff to these frames. Over here, let's use this green, fifth color in the second row. And let's just create a very simple frog. But you can add anything you like. You could also add a previous, you can draw the tutorial results here. Then let's grab this color, second color in the first row, and add these eyes. And then we'll use, let's see, this color, 8th color in the second row for the eyes and a smile. Maybe a little bit like this. Yeah, that's cute. Over here, let's just add some random green leafy stuff. Just like an abstract painting or illustration. Or you can add whatever you like. So also use this color, 6th color in the second row. Just adding some wiggly lines. Like that. Then over here, maybe we can use some colors that are close to this. Like this one, 6th color in the first row. Let's also create something abstract here. Maybe some orange, 8th color in the first row. And maybe a bit of this. A 3rd color in the first row. Just something like this. And then over here, perhaps we can make a little flower. Let's use this color, 5th color in the second row. Let's first create some of these leaves. Then we'll grab pink, 9th color in the second row. And then we'll make these petals. And then finally we can use this color, 6th color in the first row for the center. Then let's move up to these books. We have this yellow. Let's just use it for a book here. We are just going to add multiple colors to these books. We can also add this color to the frame, like the inside. And I'd like some pink books. Maybe this bottom one. Then some blue. Let's go for this one, 3rd color in the second row. And we can also use that for this pot here. But then let's switch to the orange, 8th color in the second row. For this book. And maybe one over here. Doesn't really matter what colors you use here. Let's go for this green, 5th color in the 3rd row. And maybe we can also use this one, 6th color in the 2nd row. Now let's also use this color for this plant. Then let's see, what other color shall we use? Perhaps it's white for one of the books. And then we need one more. Let's go for this color, 5th color in the 1st row for this book over here. Then for, oh, we also need this book. Let's add that as well. Then for the frame, let's use orange, the 8th color in the 1st row. And then let's grab this color, 2nd color, or maybe this one. Have I even used this one? I don't think so. 9th color in the 1st row. Totally forgetting about that color. Let's add that here. And then for the plants, let's use this color, 5th color in the 2nd row. There. And now let's add a little figure here. Let's grab this blue, 4th color in the 2nd row. Let's just create a very simple, very simple portrait here. Then let's grab this color, 4th color in the 1st row, and just add a head, like a Roblox figure. And then for the face, let's use this color, 8th color in the 2nd row. And we'll just add 2 eyes and a little smile. Then the only other thing that we need to color are these pots and plants. Let's start with the pots. Let's use this yellow, 7th color in the 1st row. Let's color this pot. And let's also use pink. You can go for whatever color you like. Just as long as it's close to these colors. If you would like a slightly different color, maybe a bit more towards the oranges, maybe a little bit more saturated, you can add that without having it look off in the illustration. I just don't go for a totally different color or something that is way more saturated, for instance. As long as you stick close to what's already here, it'll remain looking balanced. So also grab this color, 5th color in the 1st row. So don't stray too far. Then this yellow over here, 6th color in the 1st row. And we can also use that for this saucer here. Then for the plants, let's start with this color, 5th color in the 2nd row. Let's use that for this one. Drag it in. Let's also use it for this plant. Then we'll switch to the next color, 6th color in the 1st row. No, second row. The other green. And we can also use it for this one. And then finally, this color, 7th color in the 2nd row, can be used for this plant. And you can see here as well, these colors are very close together on the color wheel. That makes this illustration look harmonious. Now I'd like to add something to the computer screen. Let's make a layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus. Then let's grab this color, 3rd color in the 2nd row. But of course you can also add whatever you like on the screen. Perhaps it's showing one of my videos, could be. Or maybe it's displaying one of your artworks. I'll go along the edges. Then drop in the color. Then I would like to add some clouds on the screen. Let's tap this layer and turn on alpha lock so we won't be able to go outside of the shape. And then let's grab the 1st color in the 2nd row. And we are just going to add some cloud shapes. And over here, very simple shapes. And one over here. I'm just making like these ovals. Some of these ovals stick out a little bit. And then in the center, I'd like to make my logo. Let's grab this color, 7th color in the 1st row. And let's add a circle. You can hold your pen in place and tap one finger on the screen for a perfectly round circle. And you can also tap circle here to be able to move it around, place it in the center, then grab your brush and fill that circle. And then let's grab white again, 1st color in the 2nd row. And let me just roughly create the logo. And then maybe we can add another little cloud here. I think that looks nice. Now let's also add some clouds to our sky over here on this layer. We can make a layer on top by tapping the plus. And then let's just create a cloudy sky. We're not really cloudy. It's like a fluffy white cloud here. Go to this area. And then let's close the shape and then drag in the color. And now it's sticking out a little bit over here, I see. Wasn't aware of that. Of course, because it's not stuck to this layer, we can just tap the layer, use clipping mask, and then let's just pinch these together. Now that we have colored everything, our next step is to add shadow. Let's start at the bottom where we have our wall and floor. Let's make a layer on top of that. Let's tap the plus, and then we'll tap the N over here and scroll up to multiply. That way we can add shadows very easily. For the color, let's use this one, the 1st color in the 1st row. So it's the same color as the wall, but when you start drawing, you'll see that it gets darker. So let's think about where shadow would be. There's light coming from the top, from this window, but also from the side here. So there would be some shadow underneath this, this shelf. So we can close this shape, we can drop in the color. There is some shadow over here. Also underneath the window here, slight little edge and a little bit underneath these notes and frames. Also like underneath the computer screen. So make these shadows below these objects. And we can also add a little shadow next to the curtain. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger, maybe 17%. So we'll make a little edge here, edge of shadow. And there will be a shadow like right here underneath the, what is it, desk. That's in shadow over here as well. We can just loop around, close that shape. And then there will also be a shadow on the floor. But for the floor, let me tap and hold the eraser. Let me tidy this up. For the floor, I'd like to use a different color for the shadow. I'd like to use a warm color. So in that case, let's use this color, third color in the first row for a warm shadow. So this is casting a shadow. And whenever you have a closed shape, you can drop in the color. Shadow over here. Also underneath the chair. And underneath the stool. And also along the couch and along the rug here. Just go along the edge with wiggly motions. Like that. Then I'd like to fade the shadow a bit over here. Just make a bit of a gradient. We can use the soft brush for that under airbrushing. Let's go back to this color, first color in the first row. Now the opacity of this brush, let's set that to 70%. And let's set the size to maybe 12, let's see. Maybe a little bit bigger. Let's go for 20. And then let's just go along this area, creating a bit of a faded shadow in the lower right corner. Then let's move on to objects. Let's go to this layer first, where we have the curtains. Let's tap the plus for a new layer on top, then set that layer to clipping mask, and I set this layer to multiply. Then we'll go back to the inking brushes, grab the studio pen, and since the curtain has a warm color, we are going to use this third color in the first row for our shadow. And then let's go along these folds, adding a bit of a shadow there. And we can also make it fade a bit. We can use the soft brush again. And then go from the bottom, fade it in a little bit. Then for the window, let's go back to the inking brushes, to the studio pen. And for the window, we'll use the first color in the first row again. And we can darken this underside, which would be in shadow a bit. And then the rug, for the rug, let's use the soft brush again. And that warm color, third color in the first row. And here we can also just add a little bit of shadow in the corner. Just a little bit of a fade. Then we'll move on. We'll go to this layer where we have the desk and the shelf. Let's tap the plus for a new layer. Set it to clipping mask so that we won't be able to go outside of these shapes. and then set this layer to multiply. Let's go back to the studio pen in the inking set and stick with this warm color as we add shadow to the shelf, to the underside, and also to the side here. You can just color it in like this. And the side. And then for the top part, I'd like to add a bit of a fade. And to do that, we can use the selection tool. And then let's set it to a rectangle and turn color fill off. That's very important. And then let's select this area so we won't be able to paint on this edge. When you have a selection active, you can only paint inside of the selection. So let's grab the brush. Let's go to the soft brush. And then we'll just gently go to the top. Let's actually make the brush a little bit smaller, maybe 8%. And just add a little bit of a shadow to the top. And then turn the selection off. Then for the desk, let's first grab our studio pen again. And let's add some shadow underneath this, for instance. We can go a little bit underneath our keyboard and our mouse, our vase, and our globe. And let's also add a shadow to this edge here. And also the inside here will be in shadow. And the side here. And also a little bit like an edge there. We need the other color there right away. So let's first just go for this. This will be in shadow. And then for the side here and also the front, I'd like to add a bit of a fade again. So let's first use the selection tool and we can select this and also this area and this. I just want to keep away from the blue area. So I'll select this and this and this. Then we can grab our brush, our soft brush under airbrushing, and we can add a bit of shadow here and also here at the front. And then finally, let's also add a little bit here. Finally, for the blue area, I want to use this color again, first color in the first row, turn off the selection and grab the studio pen under inking. And let's add slight edge here, maybe a little bit more tidy. Slight edge there and also over here. So we have done the desk and the shelf. Now let's move on to the bench and stuff here at the top. Let's tap the plus, set the layer to clipping mask, tap the N, and scroll up to multiply. And then let's grab this third color in the first row again, and let's add shadow to the front of the couch here. Let's follow this edge and this part. Loop around and drop in the color, and we can have a shadow underneath the what it's called, the phone. just go around it and along the pillow and our plushie. And for the plushie itself, we can also add a bit of a shadow. Maybe the inside of its mouth. And then for the pillow, we need the first color in the first row again. Since it's blue, it needs a different kind of shadow, otherwise it won't look very nice. And a bit of a shadow around our plushie, and maybe over here. Then for the backpack, we'll grab this color again, third color in the first row. Let's add a shadow on the side. And I also want to add a bit of a faded shadow. We need the selection tool for that again to select our backpack so we can only paint on there. Then grab the soft brush again under airbrushing and go over the top here like this. Then turn the selection off, and then let's go to this tool. Let's grab our studio pen again. Let's add shadow here on the underside. This one is entirely in shadow. The one in the back, we have shadow here and the top. And maybe there's a bit of a fade there. So we can grab the soft brush again under airbrushing and go over the top here just a little bit. Then for our chair here, let's grab our inking brush again, our studio pen, and grab or color this area. And again, we can have a little bit of a fade here with our soft brush. Let's go over here. And then finally back to the studio pen. And let's add a bit of shadow to the wheel and the underside of this. Now we're almost there. Let's move to all these objects here. Let's tap the plus, set the layer to clipping mask, tap the N and set it to multiply. And then let's use our studio pen to add shadow here, for instance, and on some of these pens. Let's also use it on some of these like notes themselves, just along the edges. Also here where it's overlapping, and here. A little bit here where we have that overlap along the edge. And so for the warm colored things, like the yellow ones, orange, sandy colors, you'll use the, I forgot the computer on the other one. You'll use the warm color, and for the blue colored stuff, you'll use the first color in the first row. Let me also go back to this layer where we have the screen, because of course we also need a bit of shadow here and along the edge also of the mouse and the keyboard, just a bit like this. Then let's move back to this layer where we have the objects. We can add a shadow on this pot here, a little bit on the plants, some of these books, maybe this frame, just a little bit along the edges here. And also these pots, they have light coming from behind them. So let's just add a bit of a shadow here in the front. we're looking at it. And a little bit along the leaves. This one. And also for these plants. Then for our globe, we need the first color in the first row. We can add shadow here on this side. And also on the edge of this thing. And here on the stand. Just something like this. Then we can add a bit to this little note. And this pot. And these blue books. And then I think we have done all the objects. And our piece got some nice depth now. There's just one final thing I'd like to add that will really make this even better. I think you will like it. We are going to add some sun rays coming in from the left. So let's make a new layer on top of the others, but underneath our line art. So let's tap the plus and let's set this layer to add. We'll scroll down here to add light. And we are going to do that with this second color in the first row. And let's use the selection tool again. Let's set it to freehand with color fill turned on. And we'll just start here, tap here, and then we'll make like a sun ray going like this. We'll go down a little bit, back up, close that selection, then make another one a little bit lower. Maybe also a little bit broader. And maybe there's a thinner one here. And another one here. Then let's turn the selection off. And let's lower the opacity here. Let's tap the A. Scroll down to like 10%. And then let's blur this. Let's go to the magic wand, then to Gaussian blur, slide to the right to, well, let's say, I think this looks nice. Let's go for 12% and then tap the magic wand again. And then your lovely sunny room is finished. Congratulations. I'd like to thank you for watching and I'll see you next time for the next tutorial.